This is Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. I'm Nancy Solomon. Tonight we'll talk about the aggressive crackdown on immigrants and the criminalization of dissent in this country. New Jersey finds itself squarely in the middle, and we'll find out what the governor has to say about it. There's also a primary election to dissect, and Bob Menendez's new home. Spoiler alert, it's not very nice. Listeners, what questions do you have for the governor? Call us with them at 844-745-8255. We'll also be reading your questions on social media using the hashtag AskGovMurphy, or the number again, 844-745-8255. We're joined now by Governor Phil Murphy. Good evening.
Good evening, Nancy. Nice to be with you as always.
Yes, and the rain has started to fall again.
Yeah, I'm supposed to coach a Little League game tonight, and it's looking less and less likely.
You got to talk about that.
So you're
more.
Stuck with me.
Yeah. You have to promote the fact that you coach a Little League team that you don't have kids on, because that's a good look. You know?
I appreciate that. More on that. Let's do a whole show on that at some other point.
I'm sure you'd like that.
There you go.
Now, well, unfortunately, we're going to start with President Trump's mass deportations of immigrants. We're seeing a militarization of the policy all across the country, with ICE agents, often masked, picking up people on streets and workplaces at immigration court hearings. In New Jersey, much of the public focus has been on a privately run detention facility in Newark called Delaney Hall. This is a nearly 1,200-bed facility. It's run by a private for-profit corporation that contracts with the Trump administration. And detainees have complained about conditions there and that gave rise to a riot last week. What kind of oversight do you, Governor Murphy, have as governor of the state? And what can you tell us about the facility?
Yeah, again, it's good to be with you, but these are troubling times, Nance, for all the reasons you talked about, and you previewed it, but we also need to talk about attacking dissent, open dissent here, which is part of this. We don't have the oversight we'd like, to be frank with you. I signed a law, I believe in 2022, which prohibited private ownership of these facilities, and we've been battling in court these past 3 years. So the answer is not what we'd like, but federal office holders do have the oversight right, and they have the ability to show up. I'm not sure on a moment's notice, but certainly with whatever regularity they choose, which gets back to the whole Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, without getting into the details of a pending case, which we're not going to get into. The fact of the matter is she had every right to inspect that. And it's troubling. You had an uprising. It's pretty clear. Part of the reason I signed the darn bill was to make sure we had standards that were transparent and acceptable, including, folks, whether they like it or not, somebody who is detained has rights, and that is to a place to sleep, food that's acceptable. It sounds like that was being violated, which led to this uprising last weekend. Again, there's not going to be a whole lot of sympathy for standing up for folks who have committed serious crimes, or folks who had their cases adjudicated and they're overstaying their welcome, or they were on a tourist visa and they just never got it. To one degree or another, that group of people, there's not a lot of enthusiasm to have their backs, but that doesn't mean that there's an inhumanity here. And as you know, 4 of these folks escaped. As of airtime, to the best of my knowledge, 3 are back in custody. Turns out they were criminals. So this is incredibly complicated times right now, but a huge amount of vilification of folks because they are in a particular category. Again, I'm putting criminals, overstayed your welcome, your case got adjudicated, putting that aside. I'm talking about just profiling, if you will, immigrant communities around the country right now. New Jersey's no exception. That's not who we are as a country.
Is there any legal recourse when the federal government builds a facility or contracts with a facility that does not even meet the most basic local codes of, zoning and permitting and certificate of occupancy. I mean, these are things, if a homeowner wants to, if you want to rent to somebody, you've got to get these approvals
You bet.
from your town.
And it turns out, if you read the same reporting I did, that this was wallboard with a little bit of mesh in the middle of it, which probably you, Dave, and I could have figured out our way to go through that. That's why we're battling this in court, is the answer. But it's very frustrating. And this isn't the first administration. And you and I have been going back as far Trump 1 through the Biden administration. We know the Obama administration had its own series of situations in terms of deportations and whatnot. But it's not right. And so we're going to continue to battle this. I promise everybody out there. Again, people are crossing the wire. This reminds me of when I first ran for governor. People are deliberately crossing the wire between crime and immigration status. And if you're a criminal in the state of New Jersey, we're going to get you. We are laser focused on it. We don't care about your immigration status. If you've committed a serious crime, we're coming after you. And the Immigrant Trust Directive, as we've discussed, has been a huge weapon to allow somebody whose status may be a little bit iffy to come forward and say, that's the guy who raped my neighbor or who robbed the bank down the street. That's one of the big reasons why we're the safest state in America. But we're also not immune to this wave that's washing through America right now either, of, broadly speaking, anti-immigrant behavior.
I've been a little surprised that, as far as I know, I haven't seen any news coverage of you going to Delaney Hall or taking a much more public stance on what's going on there. Is there, why not? Why aren't you out there about this?
I haven't been there, but we've taken a pretty aggressive public stance. Ras Baraka, when his situation came up, LaMonica, when hers came up, as a general matter, we've been out there. We've been out there about as much as probably any governor in America. And we'll continue to be. Again, let's not cross the wires between criminal behavior and immigration status. We're also going to be very tough on criminals, period. But we're not, we don't have the cart before the horse, if you will.
Let's talk about what's been happening with elected officials. You said that, LaMonica McIver, who's a fairly new congresswoman from Newark, she has been charged with, I think, assaulting a law enforcement officer. It all stems from that day that Newark Mayor Ras Baraka was arrested at Delaney Hall, and they've now said that he shouldn't have been arrested. Admitted that. And so have you watched the video of the LaMonica McIver situation? I
have, but I want to be careful not to speak about the particular situation because it's a pending case. It's gone through a grand jury. What? I'm told. Listen,
I mean, it's not like you have inside information.
I've watched it the same as you have. But again, I'll repeat what I've said about LaMonica, other than I love her and she's doing a great job. She has every right to inspect those facilities as a federal office holder.
Well, and if
she said, I want my day in court, and I look forward to her day in court.
Well, but you watch the video, and what you can see is there's a scrum, and people are pushing and shoving. Yep. Everyone is pushing and shoving. She's trying to protect Bonnie Watson Coleman, who's in her 80s.
Yep.
And she's trying to get her arms around, and she's trying to, and telling the officers to stop pushing Bonnie Watson Coleman, who's in the center of this scrum and is being pushed around.
Yep.
And so it just, I don't know. I think a little bit of outrage is called for here. And I
appreciate that. The entire thing outrages me. And I've said that, but that's different than getting myself inserted into a particular case, which I'm not going to do. But I'm a huge fan of LaMonica's, by the way, and Bonnie. Bob Menendez was there, another Menendez who's doing a great job. Ras Baraka was there. 4 elected officials were there. They had every right to be there. And LaMonica said, I'm looking forward to my day in court, and God bless her, as am I. And again, she has every right to be there, period.
Okay, let's go to the phones. The calls are already stacking up. We have
goody.
Elizabeth in Soho with a question.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, are you there? Oh, I'm sorry. We lost Elizabeth. Okay, let's go to.
It would have been
a
rare
friend-
to get
we have
somebody
a-
from New York.
I have a friend of yours here. I can see on the list. Jack from Mendham is here to talk to you.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, Governor Murphy. God bless you, first of all, for being a Democratic governor in this wacky Trump universe. It can't be easy. So God bless you.
Thank you, Jack.
I promise I won't ever bother you again about farmland assessment, but I met with Speaker Coughlin 3 weeks ago, and I had an epiphany, okay? He helped me with this. He said, Jack, there's no definition of farm and farmer in this whole thing that you're showing me. I brought him down my whole, he asked me when I went in first, he goes, what do you have, the nuclear codes in your backpack there? And I took them out, I showed them, and it made me think, Governor, that you, when I first spoke to you about this, I asked you to perhaps do make it like an entitlement program where there was an income ceiling. And you agreed that that was a good idea. But when I talked to other politicians, they poo-pooed it because they said our big donors are people that are using this. So anyway, I haven't been a math teacher.
Jack, let me interrupt you for a second, because I just feel that the listening public would benefit greatly from understanding a little bit about what this is about. So this is about a tax break that farmers get that was very well intentioned and works very well for real farmers who need help with their property taxes. But now it's being used by Donald Trump at his Bedminster golf course and wealthy people in your town in Mendham and all over the state who use the tax break. They raise, they have a beehive and they get a little bit of honey, or they have a goat that keeps their lawn short, or whatever it is. They do a little bit, they call themselves a farm, and they get a nice big property tax break. So I just wanted to insert that now. And continue, please.
Perfect. And the thing that I wanted to also add, I didn't have this information previously. Across the state, Governor, I think you'd be interested in this since you're, up on taxes. These people, these 37,000 people, get out of paying $551,500,000 each year,
Wow.
$500 million. And instead of being a tax break, I think you know as well as I, it's a tax transfer. Okay, because that $500 million is transferred to the other people in those towns that don't have farmland assessed property. But anyway, just so I can quickly tell you, my formula that I came up with, that I think it's a calculation. You put your farm income over your total income that you make. So let's take most of I Oprah'd all 158 of the farmland assessed documents in Mendham, almost exclusively 1,001, 1,003, 1,007. That was the amount of money that they said that they had earned in farming.
And is 1,000 the minimum? Is that the minimum you must earn? Right.
Correct.
Okay.
And tax assessors I talked to said that that's what happened. So anyway, you take $1,000 and you put it over $100,000, let's say, as your family income. In Mendham, the average income is $250,000. But to make it easy for math, 1,000 over 100,000 is 1%. Okay.
Right.
If you only make 1% of your family income from farming, why should that entitle you to a 98% tax break because you're a farmer? And I think this would take all of the mystery out of it. It's a mathematical formula that you can't argue with. And my other part
Jack,
of
it let's get to the governor on this, okay? Let's hear a response. I mean, I thought you were working on this.
No, we are.
Okay.
We still like this, Jack. You're getting us here in late June. The budget is coming to a head in the next 10 days. I still like this. It's got bipartisan support, which initially surprised me for the reasons that Jack alluded to, that, hey, gosh, wouldn't the conventional wisdom suggests that you'd be cutting off a donor class, not necessarily of one party versus another, but that was sort of a going in bias I had, but that's not been true. And again, I still like it. I don't want to comment about a particular bill that's still working its way through the system, but I like what I see, Jack. And so stay tuned.
So what do you think would be the proper change of the system to make it work better?
Well, I think what the bill does, it basically has a means test associated with it. You've got to actually have a much more critical mass. But again, I like it. The punchline is I like it. It's fair. Jack's onto something. It's good government at work. Jack was pounding on your door, pounded on my door. He came in, we sat down, he convinced us.
Does it have to be a bill? Like, isn't something you can change?
No, it has to be a bill. My colleagues will weigh in and tell me I may or may not have that right, but we need statute to change this. But I'm an optimist on this one. A lot of people like this in this particular case, most importantly, yours truly. And we work well with the legislature and a lot of stuff. And this is one I hope that we can say that we did as well. But we like it a lot, Jack. Well done.
Thank you for your call, Jack. You are persistent, if not anything. You are definitely persistent. And okay, so let's talk about the primary. We just have a few minutes before we go to break. So what we now have two candidates for governor for the election in November. Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill won the Democratic nomination, and Jack Ciattarelli won on the Republican side. You have run a campaign against Ciattarelli when he came within 3 percentage points of unseating you in 2021. So, like, tell me, you have a unique perspective on this. What do you think are his strengths, and what do you think Democrats should keep in mind about him? Because you've run an election against him.
Yeah, I mean, these are two really credible candidates. If folks want to have a heavyweight fight for who succeeds me, I think you couldn't have two better folks in the ring. And Mikey, let me talk about Mikey first. She came through a process where you and I talked about this. 6 very credible candidates got to the post on June 10th. Mm-hmm. And she, to her credit, outperformed and won really well against a very tough, talented field. So hats off to her. We've known her a long time. I endorsed her immediately, spoke to her that night, and spoke to Jack that night. And I congratulated him. He also outperformed expectation. He's a formidable candidate. There's just no two ways about it. He's got to present himself as a former legislator, as a small businessman, somebody who's got name recognition, who's been on the scene. Without question, formidable. This will be a very close, tight race. I'm a huge Mikey fan. At the end of the day, I think she wins this, but it won't be a lay down hand. Some X factors in there will be, among other things, good news for Democrats and Mikey. 300,000 more Democrats voted in the primary than Republicans. That's a pretty big number. So that tells me with 5 opponents, one of her big jobs will be to consolidate support among the field. I think President Trump will play in this race, probably for good and for bad, both, depending on where you stand. It's hard on the Jack side in support of him, perhaps. It's hard to staple multiple terms together of the same party, Republican or Democrat. Democrats had a hard time stapling 2 together until we did it, and that took 44 years. So we'll see. It's going to be, I think it'll be an incredibly tight, I hope it's issues-based. I hope it's glass half full race over the next number of months. I'm very excited.
Do you think Ciattarelli's political positions are popular in the state?
Well, he's been all over the place I shouldn't say all over the place. He's been in different places over the years. So I think that'll be a factor in and of itself. His endorsement by President Trump in the primary, how does that play in a general, particularly given all the chaos right now? Yeah. We shall see.
You did a great job of giving me a short answer, and now we're going to take a break. You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy. I'm Nancy Solomon, and we will be right back.
You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? You can call us at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-TALK. Or pose your question on X or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon, and we are live with Governor Phil Murphy. I was a little remiss in that first segment. I forgot to go to at least one social question from David Mathau from WHYY and WBGO. So let's do two. What's the first one?
The Dave Mathau.
Why, thank you. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Governor. Of course, Governor, you know that the state budget must be in place by the end of this month. So we have a budget-related question for you. Melissa from Westfield says, "Hi, Governor. Please explain the logic behind your proposed cut of $65 million to Rutgers University in the state budget. This is in spite of also budgeting for a $6.5 billion surplus. These cuts will harm Rutgers' research, clinical, and teaching missions. This is not the time for the state of New Jersey to withdraw support for key programs that are directly at risk of losing federal funding and must retain New Jersey support."
Well said, Melissa. I'm going to ask Dennis Zeveloff, our head of policy, to give Melissa a call. Couple of things. Nobody, one of my colleagues reminds me, nobody protests on the street with placards in favor of a big surplus. That it doesn't touch heartstrings. With the way this country is being run right now, with the way the Congress is gutting programs like Medicaid, like food stamps or SNAP, like reproductive freedom, Planned Parenthood, we need as fat a surplus to withstand this storm in Washington as humanly possible. It's 6. I'd frankly prefer it for 10. So that's, in my opinion, not negotiable. It has nothing whatsoever to do with how good a job Rutgers is doing or how deserving they are, because they're doing a great job. By the way, new president picked. I think this is the last time we saw each other, which is worth touching at some point. And they're also under federal assault. But we essentially, Melissa, trimmed our sails across almost every discretionary program in the state budget. So this is not unique to Rutgers. I promise you, if there's any institution in the state that I would back the truck up on and help further, it'd be Rutgers. But we had to trim the sails across the board. The budget hasn't settled yet. There's a lot of what they call horse trading to be done, and Rutgers will be at the table. Their interests will be at the table, and we shall see. But the research engine at Rutgers, at Princeton, at both our publics and privates, are among the most impressive and important in the country. They're, among other things, a huge X factor in our economic development future, and Rutgers is at the head of that list. I'll have Dennis follow up with you, Melissa.
Okay, we can go to another question from social media, and this one is from Susan from Montclair. She says, "Governor, are you going to ban cell phones in public schools? Please."
Yeah, Susan, bless your heart. I desperately want to. Natalie Hamilton's with me. We're going to give Dennis Zeveloff the daily double. He'll also follow up with Susan. Yes, I am strongly supporting a bell-to-bell ban. I used to be in the camp of, I think it's a good idea. Then I got into the camp, yeah, we should put them in a pouch on the way into class and then pick them back up. I have now gone head over heels. I've been convinced this needs to be bell to bell. You put them in a pouch in the morning and you pick them up when school is over.
What convinced you?
I visited Jonathan Haidt, who's a huge scholar, and I went deep on this. I then visited a school in South Jersey, a very diverse school, because there was sort of this myth that the more diverse the school, I'm not sure what the hell the connection was, but there was this myth out there, which I have now seen with my own eyes is completely false, that you only could get away with this in a certain type of school. A very arrogant opinion. I said, the heck with that. I heard about this superintendent, and I went and saw it with my own eyes. I heard the student testimonials without any teachers in the room, what it did for them. And then I spoke to teachers similarly without any students in the room. It is absolutely a game changer. The question, I think, for Susan will be whether or not, I'm confident this will happen. What I'm not as confident on is saying when. So a whole bunch of bills get done with the budget, and then there's another whole session in the fall. Whether or not this gets done in June or in the fall, I'm not sure, but I'm going to do everything I can to get it done. And I think there's a building momentum in the legislature that this is the right thing to do. New York is taking this step. It's the right thing to do. I think it's the biggest contributor, not necessarily in school, but personal devices are the biggest contributor other than COVID over the past 5 to 10 years to the mental health crises that we face among our youth.
Are you concerned that you're going to kind of get stuck in the mud this fall because it's election year for the assembly, and that there'll be a resistance to doing anything?
Yeah.
And then you're going to run out of time, I'm afraid to say.
No, I think we'll have a robust so-called lame duck agenda. That would be my guess with the legislature.
So it's all going to happen November to the
I'm not sure
to
this
January.
I'm not sure this is going to happen then. I'd love to see it happen sooner. But as a fail-safe, I'm highly confident. And again, I don't want to speak for the legislative leaders, but I think they would say the same thing. And as I say, I think it's a game changer, Nance. I think it's a game changer. So again, David, we'll make sure that Susan hears from us as to exactly how we're thinking about this, but I believe she would like the way we're thinking about it.
So we've mentioned the budget a couple times. We are in the throes of state budget season. The deadline is midnight, June 30th, as you well know, but I'm telling our listeners. Are there any, or what are the sticking points between you and legislative leaders that are getting in the way of signing it today?
Right now, there are very few. We just had a call, a Zoom this afternoon with our senior chiefs of staff. There are very few. I won't get into what they are, but they are very reasonable. And I know we take a lot of criticism for the following, and that is, wait a minute, you guys do the budget in 3 days, and it's 1,000 pages, and
I have that on my list to ask you about.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on.
What's today? It's only June 18. We still have plenty of time, a full 12 days on the clock.
And how many pages is the budget?
It's probably, let's say it's 1,000. But all kidding aside, and I'm not trying to predict where the budget lands. That's a collective decision by myself, the Senate president, and the speaker, and their colleagues. And they're outstanding, by the way, and they've been great the whole time I've been there. I'm going to say 900, if it's 1,000 pages, 998 were put forward by us in late February. The stuff at the margin, it's at the margin that gets, and again, I'm not defending how it always happens late. It happens in a short number of days. I don't want to speak for the leaders in the legislature, but I do think we all would like a process that had more of a runway, more daylight, etc. But it is at the margin.
And so give me some examples of what are the things that are actual items of disagreement.
I just said I wasn't going to get into that.
Oh, that doesn't compute.
No, but there's always at the end. We proposed a number of revenue items. Okay, which ones of those make sense in what form? How do we feel about our expense structure? Are there areas? Melissa, I think, is from Westfield, who wanted us to put more money into Rutgers. Well, she's not alone. There's a lot of pressure out there to say, hey, can you add some more back into higher education, to pick one example. So what do the revenue raisers look like? What's the expense structure look like? Those are usually the two big ones. But they are, I don't want to speak for this budget, but I'll bet you I'm right on this. When the dust settles, everything that happens at the end will be on the margin. You know, we've said quite clearly we need a very fat surplus. I mentioned that a minute ago. We need to shrink the structural deficit, which is the difference between our revenues and our expenses. Unlike Washington, which hasn't had a balanced budget since the mid-1990s, we can't do that. So we've been deliberately putting chum on the water by having a structural deficit to get our economy on its feet. By the way, it's working. We're the strongest economy in the Northeast, but you can't do that forever. We need to start to shave that in.
Is state NJ, which is the property tax cut for 50% property tax cut for seniors, is that going to live?
So again, I won't get into details, but we did in the proposed budget we put forward in February, we funded that in that budget.
Yeah.
I think it's a good program. The question with that program, like a lot of other programs, is can you afford it? Can you afford to make the full pension payment? You know, that's a hill I'm going to die on, as an example.
Well, I read that it's funded for January 2026 because you've been putting money away for 3 years,
Yes.
and this will be the third year, but that January 2027 has had no buildup and no savings for. So how does it get funded beyond 2026?
That's going to be for future budgets.
Future governors is what
Yeah.
you really mean.
Well, but the pension payment's the same way, right?
Yeah.
So the pension payment is every year. The governor,
Mhm.
we need a governor, and I don't know what Jack's positions are, but Mikey is full throttle for making the full pension payment. You're relying every year on a governor to fully fund public education, make the full pension payment, make the full commitment on property tax relief, to pick three. It so happens there was no governor for 25 years until we came along, not to pat ourselves on the back. It's a fact that stood for all those things. Yeah. So we need to make sure we elect a governor who continues to stand for those things, not to get too political on this show.
But to go back to the idea of the process and some of the criticism that the budget isn't made, the details aren't made public in terms of what the legislature is proposing until the very last minute. I have some tape from Peter Chen, who's the budget expert at New Jersey Policy Perspective. This is what he had to say about it.
What?
That was really good, wasn't it? Should we skip it or should we go? Sorry, we will skip the
Peter
tape.
Chen is the Gary Cooper of New Jersey Policy Perspective.
He says that before the Budget Committee votes, and sometimes not until after the Budget Committee has voted on the bill, there's no opportunity for the public to comment on the appropriations bill, and then it's voted on by the full legislative session, and that ends up being a formality because there has been no debate from Budget Committee to a full floor.
I have I didn't hear the quote, obviously, but as I mentioned, I have sympathy with the point that the stuff that is at the margin gets done quickly at the end. I think if we had a perfect world, all of us, I don't want to speak for the legislative leaders, but I'll bet you they would agree with me. In a perfect world, there'd be a longer runway, more daylight on that process. It is at the margin. If this is a $50-odd billion budget, we're talking about, if it's $1 billion of revenues and or expenses, I would be shocked. I'll be surprised. I'll put it that way. Most of this has been out there since late February. I've chaired the National Governors Association. I've been governor for 7.5 years. I say that because I know enough to be dangerous. Our process is really good. The end of it needs help. But the multi-month process, the budget committee, other committee sessions, the back and forth, the scrutiny, the public debate, the private deliberations, I think we do it really well. I would love to fix the end. So I'd say to Peter and others, fair point on the end, and it is on the margin. Not making excuses, I'd like that to be better as well. I suspect our legislative colleagues would as well. And I hope that we can do that.
Okay.
But it is at the margin.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to another caller. We have Michael from Hamilton Township on the line.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, good evening, Governor. Nice talking to
Good
you.
evening. Likewise.
My wife and I have been my wife and I have been small business owners for about 12 years in Hamilton Township. And we pay our sales and use tax monthly. But for the last month and a half, we can't seem to be getting through to pay it. We're told that they have a new system that they're putting in place, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you could direct me to someone. I mean, I had to go all the way to the governor to tell someone I want to pay my taxes and can't.
Yep. Michael, you don't get this kind of call every day, so I'm going to make sure I'll have 12 people call you by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. No, all kidding aside, Michael, I'm going to ask our treasurer, Liz Moyo, to give you a shout. So we have put a new system in place, and it is being migrated into place. And it is, I'm told by our team that I should be looking at our revenues, particularly in the sales and use side, holistically or as a package, May and June, as opposed to comparing just May to plan or just May to last year. And it's because this is being migrated in. I'm going to ask Liz Moy or Aaron Binder or someone on her team to give you a shout. You're not dreaming this. This is being phased in, and we'll get them to you ASAP to walk you through how that's going to work.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in and weighing in on that.
Thanks for the call, Michael. So the big news yesterday was that former Senator Bob Menendez checked himself in at his new accommodations. I happened to be there in front of the Schuylkill Federal Correctional Institute in Pennsylvania. Can't say I'd recommend the place. So now he begins serving an 11-year sentence. And I really felt the gravity of the whole situation there because I had been on Capitol Hill just the week before, that last week. And the power of the place and the majesty is so palpable.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, I couldn't help but think about him because I knew I'd be going out to the prison yesterday. And I just kept thinking, like, he gave up everything.
Yeah.
He gave up this incredible job and being in this incredible place on Capitol Hill. And so, I was just wondering how you wrap your head around this one. Like when you think about it,
Did you see him?
I saw him race by me in a car, which I hardly knew it was him, except the Times photographer got a photo and we were able to blow it up and see he was in the back seat.
He was in the car.
But he arrived at about 9 o'clock. It's a very sad story, really.
Yeah, it's an awful self-imposed tragic end to what was a pretty damn impressive career of public service. I mean, you look at, and I'd even go further to say what was an American dream sort of life story, but a self-imposed tragedy that ruined it all. I mean, it's just, and I don't mean ruin it all in life. I know his son very well, and I like him a ton. And as a dad to that guy, he should take pride in his daughter. Don't know her as well. She's incredibly impressive. So that's part of his life. God bless him. But this is just a self-imposed tragedy of epic proportions. There's no one to blame that but himself.
Yeah, and I would describe it a little more. We're going to go to a break. I do have an ulterior motive because I find podcasts about Bob Menendez. I want to talk to you about it. So we will do that when we come back from the break. You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy. I'm Nancy Solomon, and we'll be right back.
listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WNYC, and WHYY. Got a question for New Jersey's governor? You can call us at 844-745-8255. That's 844-745-8255. Or go to the question on X or Facebook with the hashtag AskGovernorMurphy.
I'm Nancy Solomon. We're live with Governor Phil Murphy. So did you know that just came out?
I did. I did. Please give us the details. A shame of self.
I'm going to be nice to you forevermore for doing that.
I felt that.
Well, it's called Dead End, The Rise and Fall of Bob Menendez, Season 2 of my first podcast, which you've not listened to. I know. I would like you to. You really got to get into the podcasting.
That is actually something that I talked
You are on a podcast today, right? Or you
I did. I take it. So I am the principal of the podcast regularly. But my wife and daughter in particular are on the hard. Dad, you got to listen to some of these things. And I think it's a question of the amount of time in a day.
But you can do it.
That's what my daughter says.
I know you probably want music in your mind, right?
I think because I'm more like hearing but that kind of viewing.
You can listen to your run, but you can also, like when you're in your back with the state police SOT and you're tired and it's 5 o'clock, you're coming back to Trenton, you can close your eyes and just do it.
It's a fair point.
You don't have to breathe anything.
I'll give you an example. Our daughter is hiking the Camino, the Santiago in Spain right now, and she's doing 15 to 18 miles a day, and she said she would be lost without either music or podcasts. So I will.
Well, and so I said what it's called, Dead End, The Rise and Fall of Bob Menendez. I think you would enjoy it, actually. It's a pretty good story. And it's just 3 episodes, very short.
You break meaningful new ground.
I try to, I think it's a much more human story. I actually honor who Bob Menendez was and treat him as a human being. And I think a lot of the coverage tended not to do that. Kind of like cartoons of global bars and cash. So yeah, I try to grapple with this is becoming too much about it. The producers are going crazy.
Both of the following statements are true and could be true at the same time. The end, self-imposed tragedy is no one to blame himself. Found guilty by jury of his peers, by the way. This is not like one person went off as he's trying to imply that this was a victim of persecution. These were jury of peers. On the one hand. On the other hand, one hell of a career of public service and an American dream story, the classic immigrant story, embodies so much of what Hudson County stands for and is. It's tragic.
So I tried to kind of grapple with why. So anyway, let's move on. We have a caller, Marianne from Cherry Hill, is about to put on the line with
Hey,
us.
Marianne.
Hi, Governor Murphy. I'm a real fan of yours. I wish you would have run for president.
Oh, bless your heart, Marianne. Thank you. I get enough on my hands here.
My question is, with the upcoming dissolution of FEMA, what are the state plans for possible disasters, hurricanes, etc.?
Yeah, this is a great question, and there's no good answer. I'm going to ask my colleague Dan Kelly, Natalie, to give Marianne a call. Dan has been in the state government for a long time. This is the Attorney General's office. Governor Christie pulled him over into the front office around Hurricane Superstorm Sandy. I came in and inherited Dan's outstanding service, and I can't tell you how many storms Dan and I have gone through together. Nancy, this reminds me of Medicaid in this respect. When the federal government cuts a program that is at scale, there's no amount of money in any state, no amount of resources any state has that can compensate for that. And if the House bill were not bad enough on Medicaid cuts, the Senate bill makes it worse. In their case, going right after hospitals, which means hospitals in New Jersey will close and folks will go without. That wasn't Mary Ellen's question. The point being, the federal government, FEMA, the manpower, the equipment, the dollars, we can't replace this. We'll do our best. I hope that President Trump rethinks this. I hope it doesn't take a natural disaster to make him rethink this. In the absence of that, my guess is I complain a lot about the PJM power consortium of 13 states in the District of Columbia, but the original intent is good. No one state can do it all alone. Nancy, you have excess power on the day that it's 105 degrees and I need power and Dave's got it in the winter. That makes sense. We may have to, if I had to predict stuff like that, we may be in a consortium reality. I'm making this up as I speak, but I've thought about it, that you get into Connecticut, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, just to take that, maybe Maryland, maybe up in New England, and you try to pool resources. But there's no good answer. The federal government is this existential player across the board in so many areas of interest to New Jersey. So Mary Ellen will do our best. There's no good answer to that.
And Governor, you mentioned a couple of times the cuts to Medicaid and the fact that now it's already passed the House, and by the way, the three Congress members, Republican Congress members from New Jersey voted for it, Jeff Van Drew, Tom Payne Jr., and Chris Smith. They all voted for it, and New Jersey stands to lose $3.6 billion, nearly a quarter of its federal funding for Medicaid, and that makes up a huge part of the state budget. It would eliminate health coverage for 360,000 New Jersey residents. So what are you thinking about? I know you can't make up the difference, but now this is looking like it really is going to happen. So people are just going to lose their health care? Is that the answer?
I mean, sadly, yes.
They're going to wash in the shores of emergency rooms, and it's going to cost everyone in the state.
Emergency rooms and hospitals, if the Senate bill gets its way, will be closed. So we have plus or minus 70 hospitals. I'm not sure how many are in peril, but a good number of them would be in peril. It's just beyond belief. And by the way, just what all of us think, can you imagine Tom Payne Jr. doing this show?
No. He's not talked to me in a very long time.
You're not wrong. I mean, to have the courage, folks, to stand up and meet the folks who are going to be crushed by this. It's just beyond. It's cruel. It's frankly stupid. It's not American. And these folks, by the way, they talk when their staffs talk a really good game to our teams. We went at this hard. And they all, at the end of the day, voted exactly the way we all feared and expected they would vote. It's shameless, absolutely shameless.
And Tom Payne's answer is
Waste, fraud, and abuse.
yeah, they're going to keep the services but cut the waste, fraud, and abuse.
F.M. break. That's all I can say. That is absolutely, that's talking points that some far crazy right think and all the same and error at that. That's just not the reality. I did a roundtable in Tom's district, who, by the way, is extremely good and I like, and it does really good things over the years. I did the same thing in Chris Smith's district. A guy, I don't know everybody a lot of stuff that we do a really good job. We had people at these roundtables. You think about waste, fraud, and abuse, or work crime for these people. There's one guy that said he's going to run for work, and I said, we'll sign you up. Everybody else, there's no way in God's green earth. These people remotely. Never mind them. Their caregivers will be 24/7. There'll be nowhere for them to turn. It's just unconscionable. It's absolutely unconscionable. What do we do? On the margin. We do stuff that's going to be on the margin. The only, and I'm saying silver lining, it's not a silver lining, is in both bills, at least as of the moment, this stuff doesn't take place tomorrow. This is stuff that gets phased in over time, and sadly gets phased in or out as the case may be with a political calculus, which folks are re-elected, it makes things more unconscionable.
All right, let's see what else we're getting social. David, you're with us. What do you got?
Yes, we do have a question, Governor, from Stan from Burlington County. And this is a question that many people, I'm sure, would love your answer to. He says, Dear Governor Murphy, why hasn't the 295 42 intersection been completed? The work has been going on for more than 30 years. This is a perfect example of milking the taxpayer.
Wow, 30 years, Stan. I didn't realize it was 30 years. I'm going to have Fran O'Connor, our Commissioner of the Department of Transportation, give you a call. Always call you within 24 hours. So stay tuned, Stan. I can't give you a good answer on that.
Where is that? What did you do?
295.
It's in South Jersey, where close to Philadelphia, and then it splits off on AC. That whole intersection. I know they had a problem where all parts collapsed, and that was a huge project unto itself.
That got dealt with. That was 30 years ago. 30 years ago.
Please,
The contract promised 29. Sinkholes wasn't 80, by the way. Yeah, one is living. That's one. Not going to help stand in Burlington County, but that's an example where we went out of nowhere. Turns out Interstate 80 is built on abandoned mine shafts. And as you all talked about the show beginning before Christmas, and Fran O'Connor and his team, I want to give Federal Secretary John Duffy, who was very helpful to us. But Fran and his team in particular got both sides are open. One is completely finished, the other one will be finished by the end of this month. But both sides are open. We put $5 million on streets for small businesses. To me, that's government, good government in action, notwithstanding it caused a lot of pain, and it came out of left field. This was one of the first answers, but I'm going to get Fran to give you a call, and I will follow up with Fran personally. And stay tuned. God willing, it will take place well.
Stand and hear your friend.
Stand and hear your friend.
Okay, we have a caller. We're going to take a call from Sharon from Newark. You're on the line, Governor.
Hey, Sharon.
Hi, Governor. I'm a community of Newark. I'm having a problem with the stop out of I'm not getting or from the town, I'm using the contact person, so I'm not using my life.
Can you repeat Sharon? What program?
Yep. God bless you, Sharon. I will, you're having trouble getting anybody to answer the phone or getting the grant itself?
I got a for the grant business.
Okay.
I get my application out online.
Yep, that's terrific. I think this is a city item, but doesn't matter. I'm going to ask my colleague Rob Field to reach out to Sharon in the next 24 hours. I think, again, this is largely a newer program. By the way, Rutgers does a great job as in Dallas. But I'm very happy to get Rob to get a hold of him and see what we can dislodge this and get you a better place. How's that sound?
Okay, how do I do that?
He's going to call you. Because you called all the program and you have the details.
Yeah, we have the number where that's on Governor's staff.
Is that's okay?
I really love it.
Fantastic.
Thank
you.
It'll be Rob.
Rob Field, F-I-E-L-D. Rob Field.
Okay, good luck, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon. God bless us. Natalie, we've done it. Thank you.
So we've talked about Medicaid, we've talked about immigration, we've talked about FEMA. We haven't talked about automated tariffs. Now, there's been a lot said about how difficult that these are basically being passed on to consumers and how much prices are going to go up. But I'm wondering, the decisions change. Are we still going with tariffs, or is still an issue?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is the fact that the decisions keep changing, including on the way to bombs or not. Do you support Ukraine or not? Do we take immigrants from farms and restaurants or not? The volatility, the herculean, that alone impairs the brand of the United States. It impairs folks' ability to rely on us. That alone, no matter where we land, is bad. Secondly, by all accounts, there will be tariffs. Again, tariffs against folks who are violating the World Trade Organization. Folks like China, I think, have taken advantage of the playing field over the years. You know what? Both President Trump and Biden agree with that. But Canada is our closest ally. It's the largest trading partner for New Jersey among 36 other states. What it will mean is inflation for the consumer. I think the Chinese, speaking of the Chinese, are playing us, I hate to say this as a proud American, brilliantly. And a friend of mine who's a very astute observer made the following observation. This won't fight until Mom and Dad go to Target in mid to late August to get the backpack, the notebook, the pencil, or the pens, and they find out one of two things. The price is like, holy cow, where'd that come from? Or, sorry, man, or sorry, sir, we have no pencils and no backpacks. And at that point, I think people are going to say, wait a minute, what were we thinking? And now what do we do? So I'm very concerned, and I'm an optimist. But the brand, you're carrying a brand, whether it's in our national defense, our role in the world, our role as the world's reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, the reliable partner. Again, it's one thing to mess around with folks who are our adversaries. It's another to throw, I'm using Canada as my best favorite example, but you pick somebody else like Canada, throwing them under the bus, that's not what we do.
A quick answer to this, and then
Really?
say bye. So when you were an investment banker, before you got into politics, what was this in like, all this indecision and stuff about the tariffs?
So the big Wall Street firms are making a lot of money trading. Okay, that's good for them. That's not good ultimately for the long-term economic health of the United States, and that's what I would be focused on right now. Nice to be with you, by the way.
Thanks for being with us. You're listening to Ask Governor Murphy, a co-production of WBGO, WHYY, and WNYC. Special thanks tonight to Veronica Del Valle for directing the show on short notice for us. I'm Nancy Solomon. This is Ask Governor Murphy.